Hey there folks, Rel here. Today we'll be reviewing the drifter jump jets, which are my absolute favorite ability in the whole entire game. Now I have taken a look at them in the past, but I felt that it was in desperate need of an update. This episode is going to include a lot of information that was either left out or that I simply didn't know at the time of the first review. And as someone who's been using drifters almost exclusively since launch, there is a whole lot that I'd like to talk about. We're going to cover the specifics of what drifters actually do from a technical standpoint and how to use them effectively. You'll also be hearing me referring to and comparing to the standard jump jets a lot, just to help you better understand exactly what you're going to be getting out of the CERT line. With that being said, drifter jump jets are an alternative to the standard light assault jump jets that favor horizontal motion over vertical motion. They're going to run you 50, 100, 150, 200, and 500 certs to unlock. So that's 1000 certs total if you're looking to unlock the whole chain. Drifter jump jets last for 8 seconds and recharge over 12 seconds at rank 1, 9 seconds and 9 seconds at rank 2, 10 seconds and 8 seconds at rank 3, 15 seconds and 7 seconds at rank 4, and a crazy 30-second duration with a 6-second recharge at rank 5. So as you can see, drifter jump jets get a lot more powerful as you unlock the higher ranks, so you absolutely will feel the difference. As a side note, I was recording the durations from the beginning and the end of the activation sounds, which in actuality the jump jets are going to give you a little more thrust after the sound ends. It's maybe 1 or 2 seconds after they've run out of juice, but that duration isn't consistent, which is kind of why I left it out of the actual numbers. As soon as you activate your jump jets, you'll eat a small activation cost. So if you spam that spacebar, you're not going to fly longer, you're actually going to be doing the opposite, as every time you press the spacebar, it's going to chop a little bit of that energy off. Jump jets, regardless of type, will emit a noise that can possibly give away your position, but in my experience, it sounds much louder to you than it does to your enemies, especially in a firefight. Even before the patch, you could still hear the jump jet noise, even though it was a bit quieter. So the people who were actively paying attention and listening for you were the ones that were going to hear you and find you regardless. The now louder jump jets did very little to alter that, so it's not something that I'd be overly concerned with as a jump jet user. Drifter jump jets allow you to move horizontally very quickly, about 25% or more faster than your standard sprinting speed. So even if you're just running from place to place, each small little bump is going to give you a little bit of height so that you can outpace yourself more than you would have just by moving along the ground. And to kind of emphasize that point, the quickest way to reach a destination is to travel in a straight line, unless you're bending time and space. So you will always find that using drifter jump jets is going to get you where you need to go more quickly than if you had to follow the curvature of the ground. To build on that, here's a comparison of what you'll be getting for horizontal motion compared to your standard jump jets, both at max rank. As you can probably tell, your standard jump jets are nowhere near as useful from a horizontal standpoint as your drifters are going to be, which is one of the major selling points of the drifter jump jets. Sprinting will not increase your movement speed mid-flight, but it will negatively affect you in a few different ways. So if you're holding down the sprint key, it's going to take you longer to aim down sights, it's going to take you longer to deploy C4, to toss grenades, and even to fire the first shot of your weapon. This is because holding down the sprint key seems to factor in the delays associated with sprinting. So if you're flying, do not hold down the sprint key, it will only bring you sadness. The Adrenaline Pump certification, which grants you 10% additional sprint speed, is not going to give you an increase in jetpack speed. You'll only be receiving a small boost when you first jump into using your jetpack, so the bonus is really negligible. You can also crouch while flying, and it will actually allow you to duck, as in your chest drops down to your feet do not come up to your chest. So this is going to let you duck underneath low-hanging bars, windowsills, and that sort of thing. If you hold down the backwards movement key, so S by default, you can move backwards, but you won't move nearly as quickly as you would as if you were going forwards. And if you are holding down a directional key, so forward in this example, you're actually going to descend more quickly than if you were just hovering still, or if you were tapping the movement key. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. When moving from platform to platform, if I hold down the forward key, I'm not going to make it to the other platform, I'm just going to drop right below it. But if I tap my movement key instead of holding it, I will descend a lot more slowly. This is an extremely important part of retaining that vertical height, so just remember the trade-off. Holding down a movement key lets you move more quickly, but tapping it helps you stay higher in the air. So you may be asking yourself, oh, that horizontal motion is good, but when will I possibly need to move that much? And the answer is, a whole lot more than you think. The ability to bail from a flaming ESF, slowing your descent, and still having plenty of juice to put yourself in a good location is a huge deal. But don't use the ejection seat certification if you do decide to use drifters, because that forward momentum is not going to be retained. You're going to be put at a dead stop when you exit the vehicle, and this can actually be very harmful when you want to use that momentum to help you position. Generally speaking, people do not look above them, so being able to just hang around and wait for an opportunity to attack is sort of a big deal, especially in a large firefight where people are already occupied. When you have a vertical element to play with, like a jump pad or an elevator, you become a bird of prey, swooping down on unsuspecting enemies when the opportunity presents itself, instead of just being a guy with a gun that can get himself onto rooftops and other high places. You do, of course, sacrifice most of your vertical acceleration with the drifter jump jets, but you can work around this downside. Drifter jump jets can reach most of the same places your standard jump jets can, but it may take a little bit longer. And the reason for this is because if you are pressing yourself up against a sloped surface, you're going to glide up that surface, and you can actually move up directly up walls, like flat perpendicular walls, if you have to. The more vertical the surface is, the slower you're going to ascend, but the point is that you still can. So if I'm trying to get onto the treetops of the biolab, it's an easy day. And I can actually probably scale them more quickly than you can with standard jump jets, and then be able to fly immediately to the next vantage point without having to wait for my jets to recharge. If I find a wall or a cliff that I'd like to climb up, I just look at the cliff or look up, and then I press forward and towards it, or maybe add a little bit of left and right motion, and I'll slowly creep my way up the cliff. And with maximum drifter jump jets, I have 30 seconds of hang time to get to those hard to reach areas. I can also do the same thing while facing downwards, and I'm just keeping my back to a wall or a corner while pressing the backwards movement key. And this is actually going to let me scale the wall backwards while keeping my eyes on what's beneath me, so I can be that spider on the wall with venom made of bullets. All in all, this technique is a good way to set yourself up for a vertical advantage where you previously had none, and drifters are always best when used with some open air. When we're talking about vertical advantage or height advantage, I'm talking about anything, absolutely anything that's going to give you some room to maneuver in the air. It can of course be the obvious things like bailing out of an ESF or using an elevator or using a launch pad, but it can also be really mundane things like just fighting from the top of a tower or the top of a staircase or a tree or a cliff or a rooftop, pretty much anything. People like to say that drifters are situational, but I've steadily been pulling away from this mindset, because there's almost always a reason you can use your drifter jump jets. Of course, people like to say the word situational because they're comparing it to using your standard jump jets, which on any occasion is going to help you get on top of things and over walls, but that's just it. It's primarily for getting you on top of structures. And this is something you don't always need to be doing, so really, what's actually more situational? The light assault class is meant to circumvent enemy defenses, that's just what it does. So not being able to easily jump over walls is where most people will draw the line. But I'm going to challenge you to explore that thought in a little bit more depth, because in no way do you lose the capability to circumvent enemy defenses, not even close. The differences between the two packs are more like different playstyles rather than having one firm advantage over the other. So standard jump jets allow you to get airborne quickly and for short durations. So that's really useful for firefights if you often jump over your enemies, and it's convenient for getting to those hard to reach areas. Drifters, on the other hand, force you to play more like a platformer, jumping from area to area to get the same effect. Now it does, of course, force you to be a little more clever, and to a certain degree, plan your next move. I like to say that drifters work as a complement to your ground game instead of replacing it, and drifters are going to give you that additional mobility to move along the ground, while standard jump jets are going to let you easily move up and down, fighting from different levels entirely. I'm not going to talk specifically about ground game in this video, not in depth, but I am going to point you to another video where I do talk through exactly what I'm doing as I go through a decent shotgun kill streak. Oh, and I'm only using rank 2 drifter jump jets in that video. So you can click on the annotation if you'd like to see that video, and it will really help you get a feel for how drifters work in a normal combat situation. Also, clicking on that link is not going to shut down this video, it's just going to open up in a new window for you. So feel free to click it now. A very useful technique for drifter users, and this goes hand in hand with your ground game, is circle strafing. In this clip, you're going to see me practically fly a circle around this harasser as I drop a couple sticks of C4 on him, but that's maybe a bit more literal than I'm trying to express. Drifters give you the ability to move sideways and to strafe the battlefield or just around corners. You can retain momentum in a direction using your movement keys, but still use your mouse to face whichever direction you desire. So in the air, you're becoming a turret in a sense that you can swivel without halting your momentum. And this is really great for not only keeping your situational awareness, but also for avoiding enemy attacks and dropping C4 on target like you see me doing here. But it's very important for rounding corners as well, and for making yourself a difficult target to hit while trying to get back into cover. On the ground, you can always find an advantage by drifting around corners. Just remember to move in nice, smooth, sweeping motions. And speaking of smooth, this is going to be something that also sets the drifters apart from the standard jets. You can technically strafe with standard jump jets, but not nearly as well. You're limited to not only your fuel, but you also have to control your height as you try to travel in a relatively smooth path. So you're kind of ending up with more to think about than you really should have to. While you're airborne, you don't face the same slowdowns that normally happen when running, as long as you're not holding down the sprint key like we mentioned earlier. Normally, while sprinting or walking, if you drop C4 or detonate it, or if you throw a grenade, you're going to be slowed down. And in the air, you don't have this disadvantage. You'll still have the momentum and you'll still have the maneuverability. However, you do lose your ability to aim well. While you're jump jetting, regardless of type, you're going to be using your jumping hip-fire cone of fire. Normally, when you attack, your cone of fire is going to bloom outwards or get bigger, but if you aim down sights, your cone of fire is not going to bloom outwards. The downside to aiming down sights while jetpacking is that your scope goes all sorts of screwball, and it basically won't help you, unless you're using a night vision scope, in which case you won't get the crazy scope movement while aiming down sights. So to get the most accurate cone of fire while you're jetpacking, you want a weapon with an extremely low jumping cone of fire, and you also want to aim down sights. And usually the weapon with the lowest jumping cone of fire is going to come from a weapon with an advanced laser sight. So for the Vanu Sovereign, that'd be the VX6 TAC-7. But SMGs also have a pretty tight jumping cone of fire, and if you're curious as to what's going to work best for you or which has the smallest cone of fire, then just go to the VR training room and try some things out. So we've covered all of the technical aspects of drifter jump jet use, what they do, how to use them, and all of the little quirks associated with it. Now I want to share a short gameplay clip that's going to tie some of those elements together. In this clip you'll be seeing me use 3 of the strategies that we mentioned earlier. The first is just using a vertical element, and in this case it's the elevator. The second is tapping the forward key so we retain that height, which will let us move underneath this platform without descending too much. And the third is latching onto walls and then climbing up them by facing upwards and moving towards them. Now unfortunately, we already had control of the landing pad when I started doing this, so I can't really show you a body count of how useful it would be, but I'm sure you can understand the benefits here. So when the enemy has your elevator exits locked down, when they have the jump pads locked down, how do you attack? You need to come in from an angle that enemies won't expect, and this is what I'm trying to show you how to do here. Generally speaking, attacking from odd or unexpected angles is one of the ways that drifters really set themselves apart, not only from standard jump jets, but for pretty much any class, except for maybe the infiltrator. I'm currently using two loadouts for my drifters, both of which are played differently. The one you see most often in this video is going to be a carbine loadout. I'll usually be using the VX6 TAC-7 with the night vision scope, a smoke grenade, and adrenaline pump. Smoke allows me to cause some confusion and cover up my C4 drops, while a night vision scope is not only going to let me see through the smoke, but it's also going to let me be about as accurate as I possibly can be while drifting and firing. And the adrenaline pump is kind of just there. I just like using it for some reason.
My thanks.
The other build is a shotgun build where I'm using the Thanatos with an extended magazine, flak armor, and a flashbang. This is more of a run and gun sort of playstyle, and because of that I can't really make use of the smoke grenades since I won't really be able to see through the smoke without a night vision scope. So I'm opting to use a flashbang instead, which is going to help me cause that same sort of confusion, and it's also going to help me mask those C4 drops. On this build I like to use flak armor because I'm generally running through hallways and through doorways, and otherwise playing in areas where enemies are very likely to drop proximity mines. Of course, there are many ways to run drifters, and these are just a couple of my favorites. So hopefully this video has helped show off exactly what you can accomplish with drifter jump jets and encourage you to try them out if you haven't already. Drifters definitely take some getting used to, and losing out on that vertical motion is very hard to cope with at first. But if you have a good ground game, or if you just like attacking from high above where enemies won't even know you're there, drifters are definitely worth exploring. And like I mentioned at the start of this, they are absolutely my favorite ability slot in the game. If this video has been interesting or helpful, please feel free to like, subscribe, and tell your friends about the channel. And if you'd like to share your success stories with drifter jump jets, or your loadouts, or even why you just hate them, please feel free to leave a comment or video response below. Thanks very much, folks. We're all signing off.